Breaking news! Trying to eat my bloody blueberry muffin. Oh, fucking hell. I've got shit all over my microphone. Trying to eat my blueberry muffin, and the news keeps breaking. Right, it's proper. Breaking news! Javi Simons or Rodrygo now to Manchester City. Take your pick. I've got blueberry muffins stuck in my teeth. What's going on? What is going on today? Savinho's leaving. Jack Grealish is pretty much done deal. McAtee's on his way to Forest. I think those two were pretty expected. And I'm thinking, oh, right, those two being expected is one thing, but Savinho going was like, right, well, we've got a bit of a problem here. We need to fill that hole. What are we going to fill it with? What football player can we insert into the football club to replace the likes of Savinho? I think Rodrygo is the closest like for like. And then Sacha Tavolieri drops this bomber, which is an incredibly suspicious bomber that seems to have very Chelsea-driven agenda associated with it. Exclusive! Manchester City enters the race for Javi Simons. With the likely departure of Savinho, the citizens have re-established contact with super agent Ali Barat in an attempt to lure Xavi away from Chelsea. On Chelsea's side, talks are still on. Nothing changes. I think that's very transparent, to be honest. It seems to me that that's just like a what can I do here to turn the situation of Savinho and Manchester City, him going to Spurs, into a pro-Chelsea Javi Simons situation, to speed that up, create a narrative, and suggest that Manchester City have now entered the race to arguably speed up Chelsea's interest and get a deal done sooner rather than later and strike fear into the hearts of Chelsea and the board, who will no doubt go, oh, Manchester City have entered the race. Right, it's fucking 120 million, there you go, let's get the deal done. Let's get the deal done. I don't think anyone's falling for that, to be honest, and I'm surprised he's done it because he's normally pretty reputable, in all honesty. And I'll hold my hands up if he gets it right. And in 2 weeks, Javi Simons is like that with a City shirt. I have my doubts. That was then followed up by Fabrizio Romano. Manchester City are considering move for Rodrygo after imminent exits. Grealish gone, McAtee and Savinho can leave, and City see Rodrygo as dream target. Guardiola, big fan. Real Madrid will let him leave if player wants. Asking around 100 million euros. Somewhere around that'll do. You know what I mean? 100 million is a lot of money. I think we need to chip away at that price, get that price down a little bit. But I have my concerns about this one. I actually feel like this one is the most likeliest to happen. I feel like Pep's and Rodrygo, there's been a bit of chemistry between them two in the past. Pep has spoken in the past how much of an admirer he is. So Fabrizio Romano's not pulling that out of his arse or something that has been whispered into his ear only. That was public. Pep made it publicly known that he's a big fan of Rodrygo. And of course there was that interaction with Rodrygo in a tunnel after a match when Pep Guardiola walked past him and he acted starstruck and he showed such admiration, in jest a little bit, but showed admiration ultimately for Pep Guardiola. And I think there's a relationship there that could be struck. You know, one Brazilian in, one Brazilian out. One is absolutely levels above where Savinho is right now, but I think the age gap plays a part in that gap, to be honest, that gap in quality, in all honesty. But I think Rodrygo, the question marks for me is he's openly stated, and him and his representatives have stated into the public that at Real Madrid he would prefer to be playing on the left wing for Real Madrid. Okay, so we've lost Savinho, who is predominantly played on the right for Manchester City. He's dabbled with a little bit on the left, but he's going from one chip on his shoulder that he's going to bring that chip on his shoulder with him. Because he's got a problem playing on the right. He does it, and he plays out of his skin, Rodrygo. He's a baller, mate. Absolute baller. No denying the talent. But he openly states he would prefer to play on the left. So he's taking that problem with him to Manchester City, because I don't think he's going to play on the left for Manchester City. He's probably going to play on the right more often than not. I could see them swapping Doku and Rodrygo potentially. Probably within the same 90 minutes, just to confuse the situation and see what the fullbacks can deal with. But ultimately, I think he's going to be playing on the right in the long term. So I think it's a question as to whether that's even likely. But between the two of them as well, it's an incredibly close contest in terms of their actual output. their goals that they've delivered over I think Rodrygo edges more towards the goals in terms of the G&A, and I think Javi Simons is more of a creator compared to the two. But actually combined, they're both very, very similar over the last 2 years in terms of their output, in terms of just raw output, goals and assists. But Javi Simons for me is a central number 10. So factoring in, we've got Phil Foden, who you're hoping he can get back to that 23-24 form, player of the season version of Phil Foden we want to see. Okay, because if he is that guy, if he plays to that level that we saw in that particular season, then I think Ryan Cherki's going to struggle to get in the side. And if he doesn't, I think Ryan Cherki's going to have a point to prove, because I think over the course of pre-season, he's shown immense ability. I thought in the first half against Palermo, he was the standout performer for me, Ryan Cherki. Carried the ball with purpose, his touch was good. I think he's just one that for a little bit thinking towards the future. I think Pep's going to play him a bit sporadically and probably favour Foden in that role over the course of the season. But Ryan Cherki this season is going to get a lot of minutes. Probably second behind Foden. Still a lot of minutes. You bring in Javi Simons, and then it's like, well, what happens to Ryan Cherki's minutes? What happens to Phil Foden's minutes? What happens to the position of right wing? Are you asking Javi Simons to play right wing? He has done that. He can do that. He just absolutely prefers playing through the middle. Again, is it like for Savinho? No. I'm not sure it is. But this transfer window is just gone up a notch for Manchester City. We still need a right back, by the way. We still need a right back. So having this money that we've suddenly had injected into the football club, if the figures are to be believed, I presume Manchester City are saying do one to the 50 million for Savinho. And if that's the case, great, get that up to 70, please. And I think we can do business. I mean, somewhere in between, maybe 60, 65, and I think even then it starts to be a reasonable deal for Savinho, because I'm not convinced that he's going to ball out at Spurs and just be this unstoppable Cole Palmer-esque type transfer where we live on years of regret letting him go. You know, I don't think it will turn out to be that way. I think he's a very good player, but I'm curious to see what he would do at Spurs. But what we do as a football club following this is so interesting for that particular position and as a squad, because it's starting to become very grey and misunderstood across the fan base. What are the intentions here for Manchester City? Because I thought we had it nailed down with a almost right wing back with Núñez going up and down that right wing. Savinho plays on the right or tucks inside. I think Ryan Cherki or Foden can do that role. If Javi Simons or Rodrygo, I'm sure they could do that role as well. But Javi Simons playing through the middle is preferable in his department. So I'm not convinced at that one. So I think Sasha Tavolieri there has pulled a few strings to create a narrative there, in all honesty. But I'm fascinated to see where this goes. Rodrygo for me would be my preference. But at 100 million euros, I'd be hoping we could get that down closer to 75 to 80. And in which case, you know, we've sort of swapped Savinho out for Rodrygo, which for me is a massive upgrade in talent. And if we can get 70 million euros in for Savinho and spend 80, 85 on Rodrygo and spend, 15 million outlay to swap that player for Savinho for Rodrygo, I think that's good business. I think that's very good business. And I think the rivals will suddenly have plenty to talk about, because we've been written off this whole transfer window. We're not winning the league next season according to everyone else, you know, but Rodrygo puts the limelight back on us. The spotlight is back on Manchester City, signing a high-profile player like Rodrygo. Because everyone's sleeping on Cherki. Everyone's sleeping on Reinders as well, because I think he's going to ball out next season. I think he's going to be unstoppable. I think he's going to be a brilliant signing next season to Gianni Reinders. And the rivals will find that out, but he's a big name. Rodrygo is a big name, so I'm curious to see what it means to the narrative going into the season and the predictions as well. Let me know your thoughts, Blues. I really want to hear it on this one. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.